Hello, I am finally making a video today, and I want to talk about the decentralization of self. And that is a very wide-reaching subject, of course, and I think about it all the time in my life. This is on my mind all the time, as it was on Jiddu Krishnamurti's mind and Dr. David Bohm's mind. And I wish I could have talked to them. I could have talked to them when I was a child. I could have gone to England, Brockwood Park, and to that school, and that is the school that Jiddu Krishnamurti founded, and he was there a lot, and he was talking to Dr. David Bohm at Brockwood Park, and so I think about this all the time. I'm obsessed with that. Like when I was 10, like thinking in retrospect, when I was 10, I should have run away from my parents. I guess it's too difficult before 10, but when we're 10, we're like just before puberty. We're just big enough to get onto a train, onto a ferry boat, and leave the country and run into someone else's arms. But obviously, I didn't know about Jiddu Krishnamurti. But I sensed him. When I was a teenager, I sensed him. I sensed the entire person, his appearance, everything. I could see him inside of my head, and I didn't know where these images were coming from. But I sensed him, and he was still there. And I knew that was a very, very wise old man. Okay, these images, very austere, wise old man that came into my head, but I couldn't put a name to that image, and I didn't know who that is. I didn't even know whether that was my imagination or if that was an intuition and I was actually sensing someone that is out there. So if I had meditated enough, if I had been in mental quietness enough, if I had been able to do it, my brain was never quiet, so because of the PTSD and all of that. So if I could have just sensed him, where where the name would come into my head, where I can find out who he is. I can go to a bookstore and find his books. I find out where he is located. Then I could have packed up some stuff into a backpack or something and just left the country. And I could have gone to Brockwood Park. I could have said to Jiddu Krishnamurti, I ran away from my parents, don't tell anyone. They're probably looking for me. I'm gonna write them a letter. I'm gonna tell them that I am living with different people now because I didn't like it the way my parents are handling things in their lives, but I didn't know any of this, When we're children, how do we know any of these things, right? I mean, later on we can look back on our lives and we can say, yeah, I should have done that differently, but I didn't know. I didn't know at that time. How can I possibly know? There's no way. When I'm a child, when I'm a teenager, even in my 20s, I didn't know. I could have still met him when I was 19 or maybe even 20. He died in 1986, I think. I think he was 91. I'm not showing you. So, how old was I then? I was 19. I was in 1985. I could have met him. I was 20. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I still could have met him when I was 20. I could have gone to Brockwood Park and seen him for one last year of his life, so, and attended his classes and all of this. My parents didn't even know about Brockwood Park. If my parents had known about Brockwood Park, I know they would have supported me with this. If I had convinced them that this is where I need to go, this is the school I need to go to find my path in my life, so I know they would have sent me there, but they didn't know about it. So they knew about Waldorf school, they knew about Rudolf Steiner. So my wider family, they all know about Rudolf Steiner. They all sent their kids to the Waldorf school. My cousins from my father's side, from my uncle, they all went to Waldorf school. And that was good too, but that was not, it wasn't perfect. So Brockwood Park would have been much, much better for me, particularly at the time when Jiddu Krishnamurti was still teaching there and giving lectures and having conversations and having people participate in those conversations. Yeah, I would have loved to participate. I have so many questions now, that I would ask if I could go back in time, if I can go into a time machine and go back in time and meet them. I would be constantly asking questions. Where does the stream of sorrow come from? Does it come from the Big Bang? Is that when the stream of sorrow was created in order to create contrast in the world? To send out fragmented souls in form that are embedded in splinters, splintered matter that then later on starts to accumulate matter and become planets and magma and sun and so on. Souls that then also come in all kinds of forms, new souls, suffering souls, agony. And so that's what I want to talk about right now. The decentralization of self. Why do we have a sense of self? There are many aspects, of course. First of all, we're biological beings. Okay, so, and the work by Michael Levine, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Levine, I think. Michael Levine is doing research on stem cells. Actually on frog stem cells, and I am against that. I don't like that at all. But he's finding out some very interesting stuff. For example, that even stem cells that where they have removed the particular cell differentiation, I don't know exactly how they do this, but they removed the cell differentiation program from the stem cell of a frog, from an embryonic, a tadpole, whatever, a stem cell of the frog. And then they observe them in a very powerful microscope, in an electron microscope, maybe in a more powerful microscope than quantum or whatever, So, and then what they find out is that these stem cells have the tendency to dock onto others. They can't do that until they cut a little sliver out of the outer membrane. Cells have a membrane that keeps them contained within their own sphere. Otherwise, they would be more like free-floating protein molecules, like a virus, for example, RNA. But they have a membrane, and with the membrane it's like a bubble, when you observe soap bubbles, for example, they create this very, very frail soap membrane, of course, in the air, and there's air inside. But these soap bubbles, they can potentially bounce off each other, but I guess, most of the time they will bust. But something with a little bit stronger membrane, some kind of ball, will bounce off another ball, of course. But when they cut like a triangular shape into that membrane, then this stem cell becomes something that we have seen in very, very early video games. There's a video game called Pac-Man, for anyone who's old, who has played those video games when they first came out, I guess, a long time ago, like 1980 or something. Yeah. So, and this video game, this is exactly how these stem cells function. They actually, I don't know how they move. I guess they're kind of amoebic a little bit. So they move somehow, and then as they move, with this artificial mouse, they will dock onto another cell, and that's also how the video game functions. So this like full moon was the triangular mouse, or if it catches onto another full moon with the triangular mouse, then it will swallow that other one up and then become bigger or something. I think that's how this Pac-Man video game worked, and that's how these frog stem cells work. They have the tendency to dock onto other stem cells, to accumulate mass, sort of. And as they do it, there is no self idea. There is no idea of this is me and this is the other. It is much more biological. It's much more rudimentary in evolution. It's like, if I eat this, then I become bigger. That's kind of like what we do. We eat, we have to eat, and then we become bigger, right? So we have to eat in order to sustain our very highly complex organism that we are. Okay. But in the stem cell form, it is a stem cell that will dock onto another stem cell. So there is no there's no sense of individuality of self in that sense. It is just like, oh, another one, I dock onto it. But that's also what we do, complex organisms, when we seek refuge with someone. When I'm lonely and I seek refuge with my dog, I sit on the couch with my dog and I hold on to him as the tears come out of my eyes, and I whisper into his ears and I say, thank you for being in my life. And it feels like my dog and I are one unit. So there's also this unification happening in a psychological sense, but also in a physical contact sense as well. So these things are just coming to my head as I'm talking, because I want to explain all of this, what self actually is. I also want to meditate on it, what self is, and do kind of like freelance brainstorming on it, So there's a healthy sense of self, as in biology, as with eating, metabolism, as in seeking comfort from another living being. We unify, we hold each other, I hold my dog in my arms. Or if you find another person, you hug each other. My friend Sonia and I, we had in LA, we had been mugged by 2 criminals. They wanted our money. It was really dramatic. We both started screaming. We learned that from someone else, a really nice social worker lady. Just not long before that, almost like the universe bringing us this as a test or something. Now we can test this out, and it worked. And I threw myself in front of an oncoming car to save Sonia and myself, and that worked. And the guys ran away, and when the guy came out of the car, and then we were both shaking, our knees were shaking, and in this process of both of us being equally shaken up, literally, we stood there on the sidewalk and we just clung to each other. We just hugged each other and stood there for a very long time with shaking knees and crying, both of us, and holding on to each other, until we finally calmed down, and then we were able to walk back to the place where we were living currently at that time. We were roommates, and we were living with her aunt, Isolina. And so that was a very traumatic situation. And so there is this comfort seeking, when you find a unification with someone psychologically and in a physical touch form. So, and all of this is completely free from any kind of sexual connotation, what I have mentioned so far. So once you bring sexual connotation into it, a man and a woman getting together, so that it has to do with reproduction, that's yet another form of unification, of course, that is happening. So there are many forms of this, like creating this unification, this togetherness, the touch and all of that can come in many different forms, in many different psychological ways. And when that happens, particularly when it happens in the non-sexual ways, because sexuality, that is such a deep and such a complex subject, sexuality and psychology. is, I mean, the hormonal part of our existence, how that it docks onto neurosis, like a hydrophilic substance to water. It's like where it basically becomes immersed into it, and that makes it so difficult to figure out which is my normal, natural hormonal reaction in my life, and where does my neurosis come in. How far is this intertwined, and how can I sift this all out again, so. But before I get into that subject, I don't even know if I'm going to touch on that subject in this, because I want to really get into the nitty-gritty of self, and particularly the neurotic part. But the neurotic part, the mentally ill part of that self, that idea of self, and also, where does it start? I mean, the neurotic part of self. Does it go into biology? Yes, it goes into biology. Then when it comes to reproduction, that's like totally immersed and embedded, where, we become territorial and all that stuff. It's the sense of self, the idea of self, self-importance, etc., and so on. It just goes on and on and on with that. You can open the blinds now. The sun is behind the horizon, so I need, just to get a little bit more daylight that we have left now. Yeah, that would be good. And then, thanks. And you can also turn the table light, the table lamp on, because I know the sun is going to go down pretty soon. So thank you very much. Thanks. So this is all very complex, and what I really need to do is I need to have a large white lecture board or something behind me that's like wall size. That's what I really need. And I need a better camera. I need cameramen, that's 2 cameramen maybe, and really good video editing. That would be really ideal, and me not having to worry about the camera at all, me not even seeing myself, which makes me extra nervous, and just focusing on what I'm pondering about. It's not necessarily like a lecture or school lecture or something like this, just in order to basically learn as I go, so, because I'm not the end all of this information. I mean, that's what's in my brain is not the end all of this information, of course. I'm exploring it. And that's also what Sri Krishnamurti always said when he was talking to David Bohm. He said, we're exploring, that's not written in concrete. And we're not judging. We're just trying to find out. We're going into different depths, onto different heights, so into different matter, and we're trying to find out, is this related? Is there an origin somewhere? Where is the origin? Where do things start, and how does it gradually move from one state to the next? I mean, this applies not only to biological evolution, that applies to galactic evolution, so that applies to any kind of evolution, that applies to mineral formation, crystal formation, and so on. So, and that's happening also into infinity, I'm sure that there's crystal formation all over, into infinity, into the infinite cosmos. And there's also biological evolution happening out there. There are ETs. This is a guarantee. This is not just a speculation. I know for absolute certain. Whether they're observing us, that I'm not so sure about, but I listen to different lectures. Listen to Dr. Stephen Greer. It's very interesting. So I believe him. I believe that he has seen different things. So with his own eyes, I believe him. So maybe it's all out there. And of course, the people that want to have power, they don't want to, if they find something that where they think they can use to empower themselves with, they're not going to share that with the rest of the world. They want to keep that for themselves, in some kind of underground bunkers or something. And they can only think this far. So unfortunately, it's very, very, very sad. But I think that's why ETs are if they send us anything down here, they will send what they call reconnaissance missions, where the beings that are in there are sort of like bioengineered robots of some sort. The little grays I heard, they're like bioengineered machines, sort of. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe that's just it's a hoax. I don't know, but it's. I think it's wild what's going on out there. But we don't have to worry about it. There's nothing to worry about it at all. What worries me is Joe Biden. That's what worries me, Greedy people, George Soros, those people, they worry me very, very much. So the corporate agenda, But again, that's such a large conglomeration. They have so much leverage. I wouldn't even try to go out there and try in any way try to stop something like this, because that's impossible. You can't. The only thing that can stop them is AGI robots. Not even ETs, I think, unless they have unbelievable technology, and that is what AGI robots are. There, AGI robots are unbelievable technology, and humans are in the process of creating those. And maybe there are some ETs that have created some robots that are extremely powerful. So I think only something that is like the Terminator, literally, can stop someone like George Soros and all the other ones that are out there behind the scenes, that are running the whole planet. So, and that also goes into the subject. Self, of course. There are people that are so far in an act-out drive of idea of self that all they can see is money accumulation, how to make more money, how to gain more power over the whole planet, how to manipulate the public, how to brainwash people, how to propagate religion as a tool to brainwash people, and so on. This is the only thing that they can think of. To them, this is the most real thing there is. As Jiddu Krishnamurti said, it's an illusion. Anything that is, the idea of wealth accumulation and this power over others, it's an illusion. But for those people, it is more real than any material object even is, So that's why they cling to it. with such enormous tenacity, and that is the ego, that is the sense of self, that's the idea of self, this power over others, power, leverage, political power, and so on, money, be able to buy entire cities and buy anything they want. So it's an illusion, because if there is no compassion involved in this process, then their lives are empty. But they can't understand it, they can't see it. They can only see wealth accumulation and power over others, so political power and all of that, political leverage. And that's it's a pathology. It's a mental illness, but it's also genetic, of course. It's like they have a genetic disposition in that direction, and if the parents are like this, or if the whole society is not beneficial for any living being for any human particularly coming into this existence, not beneficial. As Jiddu Krishnamurti also said, everything is against that boy or girl that comes into existence. The whole world is against you. So the whole world is kind of like a player, a systematic breaker of your spirit, of your mind, of the true natural self that you're supposed to be, with compassion and with empathy and feeling for someone else, and having mother instinct or father instinct, which is the same, of course. So love, empathy, that is what love is, is feeling compassion for another living being. When people are so far out there, on the run, away from truth and towards illusion, which is towards wealth accumulation, then they can't see the other anymore. It's impossible for them to see the other. Okay. They can only see their own particular materialistic existence, and their own materialistic functions, and their clothes, their car, their homes, the land they own. And then it goes so far that they view their own bodies as just a materialistic thing. And they go under the knife, and they think they can make themselves look like 20 again. But it doesn't work that way, okay? So it doesn't matter how far a woman at age 80 stretches her face, her facial skin. It will just look she'll end up looking like a burn victim, So, but they're so far into this. It's a pathology that they think this is the only way they can be liked by another person, or get respect, or like if we're old we can't get respect. Like, wow, how far has society removed itself from the natural state of existence, of beingness, And so I'm trying to shed light onto this so that people can reflect over this and see how mentally ill everyone and the entire society has become, you know. So there's a healthy sense of unification that happens on many different levels, in different ways. There are crystals that are growing together. It's another form of unification. There are trees of the same type that start growing together. They will become one. This happening in biology all over the whole world in many different ways. In mushrooms, ant colonies. This is the function as a singularity, you know. So happens all over, okay. And then it happens with the mammals or birds too, and even octopus, which are like very far removed from us genetically. Our common ancestor was a flatworm in the ocean, you know, a fluke of some sort, as they call them, like something like that planaria worm, you know, that's a very interesting one that the scientists love to work with that, because, and I have the feeling that's actually on our lineage. I don't know, it looks like it is. I don't know, I get that impression, you know. Would be interesting for them to dig that far back with genetic research to find out that the planaria worm is actually on our lineage. So there was something like some kind of cousin of the planaria worm, or maybe an ancestor of the planaria worm that was then also the ancestor of the octopus, and they split off very, very soon into a different direction. And then we have a parallel evolution happening. So evolution that's very gradual in the beginning. They are apart, they're branched apart, now they are parallel evolving, and you see a lot of literally parallels happening in the way it grows, and through trial and error and adaptation, and becomes something bigger, something more complex. And then of course, you know, the human lineage, it becomes amphibians and then reptiles and then mammals. So while the octopus then becomes a more complex fluke, you know, with more tentacles and bigger and developing a brain, you know, and all of these kind of things. So they are capable of cognitive functions. They are, and that's what I wanted to say also, something I saw just recently in a documentary film. This is very interesting. Octopus that are that far removed from our personal development, you know, from where we have come from, with the common ancestor of being an ocean fluke. So, I mean, that is really dramatic, you know. A parallel evolution where the large octopus in the ocean, you know, then being observed, you know, they catch them, they put them into an aquarium for research and observe them, and then hopefully they all have compassion and bring them back to the ocean. In this documentary film they did, and I was so glad to see that, you know. So they had a female octopus there, and here also gender development, you know. So that was not natural for the fluke worm. The fluke worm was a hermaphrodite, you know, a very rudimentary being that would split itself in two. And you can see that with the planaria, you can see that with C. elegans, you can see that with a lot of worms, you know, and even I think the earthworm will, if you cut it in two pieces, it will grow into two large worms. And that's also how they proliferate, I think. They will at some point split into another one. And that's how most individual worm species, I'm not talking about larvae, that's how most worm species actually function. So coming from there to an octopus, parallel evolution, which is they have not influenced each other in any way. They were even living in completely different places and in different mediums. Yeah, octopus on water, the mammal on land. So now they have both come to a level, and I don't know which one is more evolved than the other, but the octopus has also created two genders, and guess what? This will probably come as a huge surprise to most people. The female body of the octopus sheds out estrogen. I don't know, if the brain also has, this would be very interesting to see, I guess the researchers, I have to research this. I have to watch more documentary films on this, on the octopus brain. And they have a central nervous system like we have. So in our central nervous system, my pituitary gland excretes estrogen. Okay, this is a lot of estrogen. Okay, a lot. And there was a girl in that part of the research team, and they said that the female octopus touching her arm all over with the suction cups. These suction cups, when they touch you like this, they kind of wrap themselves around you, but in a loving way. You can see that in the way their body color is. The body color changes in octopus, and that indicates, it's like a language. It indicates different emotions. And that female octopus touching the girl's arm, I hope she didn't have perfume oil on her arm, and the suction cups on the underside of that octopus tentacle can actually detect your own chemistry. So the octopus detected her estrogen in her body that is also coming out of the pores, So if you are a man, you have a lot of testosterone coming out of your pores. So, and the octopus will be able to differentiate between your arm and my arm. So, and I don't know what the octopus is then thinking if she is touching your arm, So maybe she falls in love with you or something, And I've seen this also. There are some male researchers, and this one male researcher, he has a very large octopus there that he's studying, and I think she's lived there for a very long time, for like many decades. And she has a very large aquarium, so which is good, but that's not near as good as being free in the ocean, of course, but but at least she has a lot of interaction there with this guy. And that's real. That's, first of all, it's real love that's happening there. There's a unification happening in terms of real love. But there's also more than that. There is a hormonal attraction as well. So I don't know how far the octopus actually recognizes this man as a potential mate. So that would be interesting to see. I mean, if we can develop a bridge language, then we can really find out, what they're thinking. So that would be really interesting to develop a bridge language with highly evolved other animals, other beings that are here on Earth. We don't even need to talk to ETs. Let's just explore the other highly evolved beings on this planet. They haven't even done that yet. So, I mean, they are as alien, they are not ETs because they're here, they are terrestrial, but they are, many of them appear as alien as any ET would, so, and particularly in octopus, that had this parallel evolution as an ET would, that looks like us, would come here, and we had a completely parallel evolution happening, where maybe the common ancestor was an amino acid, or that may have been seeded somewhere. I don't know if that actually happened, or if that amino acid had actually also formed itself through trial and error in exactly the same way that happened here on Earth. So, and then we have minerals as a common ancestor. So, yeah, that's a parallel evolution, Would be interesting to see if these ETs also, like the octopus, then have the two genders and have the estrogen created in the pituitary gland, or in something that is like the pituitary gland in the brain, and then have this biochemistry lab inside of this amazing complex organism, that creates by itself, because of its genetics, because of its gender, creates this specific hormone in particular, and so that the octopus is able to detect that in that woman's arm. So, oh, that's a girl like me, That's what she was thinking, probably, and or something like that, And it can be very, very concretely the same, actually, what they're thinking. We don't know, So there's a unification happening then, in that sense, in a loving way, okay? So all of these subjects take me really away from the main subject that I want to talk about, but it all ties in with this, I think it's very, very important. So the process of the decentralized, and maybe I'll make several parts. No, I think that's what I'm going to do, because 1 hour is not enough to cover this. This is such a humongous subject, okay? You have no idea. The decentralization of self. So let's just make this part 1, okay? Because I know I'm going to have to make several more of this and get into the depths of this, because there's so much that ties in with this. I mean, the entire dilemma situation of the human species has to do with this subject, because people are not doing the decentralization of self, of the idea of self, okay? So they're not doing this. They're caught up running away from the natural self, that the natural beingness that they actually are, okay? So self in a natural biological way. What I mean by the self in the title, decentralization of self, I mean the self idea that comes from neurosis, that comes from pathology. The centralized idea of self, okay? This is a psychological phenomenon. This is a sick development that has taken place with the human species, and that has led us to where we are right now, in a total dilemma situation. And that's why the courageous, very, very, very ultra courageous angel wing, angel soul, Dr. Ben Goertzel, keeps saying to people, if we don't get the AGI robots to fix the whole planet, then the human species is guaranteed to destroy themselves and everything around them. Okay, and that's a fact. Okay, this is not a speculation. This is a fact. This is an extrapolation that is factual because it is inevitable, because of what we see right now happening to this planet. And you can call it doomsday thinking, call it whatever you want to call it. It is still fact, okay? And I care, so that's why I think about this all the time. I care deeply. That's why I sign petitions. That's why we are living green. That's why we want to get an organic farm and live 100% green and 100% in tune with nature and be that what we are set out to be that what we actually are, the natural living being. Not the stiletto CEO, okay? That's not natural. Be what you actually are, okay? Biologically, okay? I have women's shoe size 12. I'm not going to put these precious chunky feet into stiletto shoes, okay? I put them into Birkenstock shoes. They're already completely shaped in my foot shape, because they're from Germany, as I am, and they don't fit Paul's feet very well. So Paul has too much British in him, I think. So we need to wear what is natural to us, to our bodies, natural, comfortable, breathable clothes, right? Live a natural, comfortable, happy life. That means I'm not in a chador. I'm not shackled to some kind of prison or ball and chain or be in some kind of hideous religion or cater to some kind of boss or husband or whatever society, right? I am the natural, empowered, biological machine, this powerhouse that I am, and I want to be free, and I want to live the natural life that I'm supposed to live, okay? And be opinionated, and be free, and be a free thinker, okay? Be a free spirit, open my wings, my angel wings. I'm not an angel level yet, but open my mental brain waves wings, okay, and use my brain and participate in this process of brainstorming, as every woman is equally capable of as every man, okay. Be the natural you, okay. Be the real woman that you are supposed to be, okay. Be the real man that you, the hater, is supposed to be, and not some kind of religious pushover, okay? Be the natural person. Be friends with the woman, okay? We have things to brainstorm on. We may have different brains, but our brains are equally powerful. They have equally much to deliver and to offer. So let's work together with this, This is unification. In brainstorming and making the world a better place. That means freedom of speech. That means no Islam. That means no religion. No shackling of the mind, of the brain. Okay? I hope I make this very crystal clear with this. So that is the decentralization of self, of the idea of self, to be the natural person, and to be that what you're supposed to be, okay? We're supposed to be friends. We're supposed to help each other. We're supposed to give and take, and give and take in an equal balance. We're supposed to be selfish and altruistic at the same time, okay? We're supposed to have compassion for each other. That's the natural beingness, okay? So I'm going to make more parts for this. Take care.